Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Planning Economic Community Services meeting. This is our special meeting we're having today at 10 o'clock. I'm Commissioner Larry Johnson, and I'm the chair, and I'm joined by other dynamic commissioner, Commissioner Jeff Rader from District 2, and Commissioner Steve Brashaw from District 4. And if you all let me know if any other commissioners join, I will properly introduce them. But this is a full agenda today that we have. And I want to start off with Commissioner Rader to see, have you had a chance to review the minutes from May 10th? And if so, I will take a motion to approve.
I have, and I have moved the approval of the minutes of May 10th.
Thank you, sir. I'll second that. Is there any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes, May 10th, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now we will go to our appointments interview. We have two dynamic individuals who are offering themselves up for service to be on the DeKalb Hospital Authority. And I want to make sure I get these names right. We will go, it's Dr. Basanta Henry or Basanta. I want to make sure I say it right.
Basanta. Thank you.
Basanta. I want to put a little twist you put on there. And I just want to say thank you for offering yourself up. This is a very great board. You're helping people, not only in DeKalb and Fulton. We have people that come all over the region to be part, and you will be the person who is over the lease of the Grady Hospital system. And so before we get started, I would like to give you a chance to do some opening comments.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. I'm, as you said, Patrice Basanta Henry. I am a physician by training. I am a board certified OBGYN as well as maternal fetal medicine specialist. And I am also a corporate medical director for Mednax, which is a large medical group that owns several practices across the country. I have sat in that role for the last 5 years. I am originally from Jamaica, but have been a DeKalb County resident since I was 19 and have remained that way. I think I've lived here longer than I've lived any place in my life. Outside of my work, I am a Grady trained physician. I spent 11 years at Grady, and my time now is predominantly spent at Old DeKalb Medical, which is now Emory Decatur. The majority of my patients are patients who meet the demographics of people that would be served at Grady, or fortunately, my patients are patients who meet the criteria for government insurance, so are able to come to me in private practice. But outside of what I do every day, I've also spent the last 12 years with the majority of my time doing community service through the Junior League of Atlanta. And I also serve as now the executive director for the Franksky Kids Foundation.
Great. Thank you so much. And now I'm also joined by Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson. So we round out the Planning Economic Community Services Committee. Commissioner Rader, I'll start with you with the first question.
All right, thank you. And welcome, Dr. Basanta Henry.
Thank you.
Would you please describe what you perceive to be the role, duties, and responsibilities of the members of the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority?
So my understanding of the roles of the members is that, number one, oversight of the funds that come in, and then just assuring that the funds that do come into that committee are redistributed to the community, that that the members of both the Fulton County and DeKalb County communities see these resources not only from a medical standpoint, but also other resources such as violence prevention, health literacy. I'm sorry. And then what was the second part of your question?
Well, just the roles and responsibilities of the members of the board. And so I think that you had described those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Rader. Now we'll go to question 2 for Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And I just want to say thank you, Ms. Basanta Williams Henry, I'm sorry,
okay.
but for being here today. I do not have the questions, Commissioner Chair. So okay. I've asked that they be sent to me.
Okay.
And so if I could come back, if someone else could take the question, I'll come back.
That is fine. Please describe any of your previous experiences that would be relevant to service on the hospital authority.
So in my role as corporate medical director, I oversee not only my practice, which is we're comprised of 5 offices. We cover 6 hospitals. So I oversee that from a clinical and administrative standpoint. In my role, I also sit on hospital committees. So I oversee for Piedmont Fayette, Piedmont Henry, Southern Regional, and Emory Decatur, the maternal mortality committees. I also oversee the antepartum unit, which is the unit of the hospital that covers the care of any high-risk patients. Sat on committees recently for during the pandemic for the care and protocols that were necessary for the care of high-risk patients during the pandemic. I have sat on, for 5 years, the Junior League of Atlanta's community board that interacts with over 80 nonprofit agencies. And then most recently, I sat on their donor advised fund for 4 years, which is a committee that oversees the distribution of funds to nonprofits that apply for help from the Junior League of Atlanta.
Thank you so much. Now, Commissioner Davis Johnson, are you ready? If not, we'll come back.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, come back. I do want to apologize. I did say Ms. Bencenta Henry, I am so sorry. I'm just coming from another committee member. I should have said doctor, so do accept my apology. So after, I will be ready, Chair, after the next question.
All right. Commissioner Rader, will you take the next one?
Certainly. As an appointee of the hospital authority, what are the 3 top priorities that you'll focus on during your tenure?
Well, number one, I think the hospital authority has someone who has continued to interact with the Grady health system. I think they've done a great job thus far. And so my main priority is becoming well aware of the initiatives that they already have in place, and they're with the board members that are there working to continue with those initiatives. My second priority would be the implementing programs that focus on health literacy. I think as a physician, something that the pandemic taught us was that regardless of literacy level and education level, that there is a problem with health literacy. And no matter how good of a job we do about making resources available to the committee, that job is futile if the community itself does not understand the resources that are available to them. My third priority would be to work with the commissioners and the board itself on violence prevention programs. I think one of the most glaring things that affects our community and our health overall at this point is violence.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Davis Johnson, are you ready?
I have not been sent the questions.
All right, you all. Somebody need to send them. Oh, Dr. O'Bain, Manson, everybody somebody just send them all at the same time, and so we can.
I have not.
Yes, sir, it was sent. I'm going to send it again.
All right, I'll do the last. I'll do this one. We'll say the last one for you, Commissioner. What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing Grady? Then I'll ask the second part of that question after you finish that.
There's always the problem of funding, but yeah, I would say continuing funding and moving Grady forward in the way that the resources, the funding is being used for resources that are in line with some of the other hospitals and, well, hospital systems, not specifically hospitals. Grady has always been challenged in the sense that the resources don't match the, not the requirements, but the resources are not always in line with the needs of the community. The needs of the community are ever changing, and the resources are sometimes limited in the way that they can be spent. So I would say resources.
Let me turn this around. They know how I like to ask questions. I like to look at the glass as half full. What do you believe are some of the biggest successes of Grady?
I am an OBGYN by training, so I'm going to tell you the strides that have been made with maternal health care that is delivered through Grady have been phenomenal over the last 20 years. The NICU at Grady is world-class. It is the place to, as a physician, so I would say the NICU is the place to be, and our trauma and ER areas. But as we expand, I would say a lot of the successes are the way that we've seen Grady expand out into the community and be able to offer clinical services in some of the areas that the dialysis center, the new surgical center that is being built, mental health services. So they have assessed the need and taken it outside the walls of the hospital.
Excellent, excellent. And part of that is, how would you advise through the hospital authority to work on the successes and the challenges at Grady?
So you have to touch the community first. So I think successes are great when you talk about them on paper, but there's always the need to touch back to the community and assess how they feel about the resources that are available to them. Resources are only as good as the people who are accessing them and using them. So that would be the first step, to figure out exactly who is accessing all of these resources that are available. And then once you get feedback from the community, you work on the things that they say are working for them, but also assessing their needs, and as a committee and a community, determining how we move forward in a way that not only meets the needs of the community, but while fulfilling the roles of the committee.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now, Commissioner Davis-Johnson, are you ready?
I am, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Dr. Basenta Hendricks, for bearing with me today. I'm listening to you. I've seen your resume, and I think you're very impressive. But I do want to ask, are there any extenuating circumstances or potential reasons for recusal that could preclude or impede your services on the hospital authority?
No, not that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, before I get to your closing arguments, not arguments.
Commissioner Rader had a question for me.
Wait. Commissioner Rader?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just wanted, and I'm sure you're aware that the counties are currently engaged in a renegotiation of our contractual relationship with the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority at this point in time. Obviously, the old contract is from 1982 vintage. Our approach to healthcare and health maintenance, I think, particularly as it relates to Grady, is shifting substantially from, acute care and ongoing care of chronic conditions more to a health maintenance and preservation type of a strategy. And so do you have any reflections on, how we might should approach that relationship so that we can ensure that the resources are applied in the most effective way, not only to address acute and chronic health needs, but also to help to, avoid those situations so that people can, maintain good health rather than having to be intervened in the way that we have it in the past with Grady.
So what I think we know as medical providers is that for the average person, there is very little motivation for health maintenance. Most people show up at the doctor either because they're pregnant or because they're sick, and they continue to show up because they're sick and they need health resources. So in order to switch the model of the care that we give from being acute care and chronic care to being maintenance and preventative, you are going to have to get buy-in from the community and change almost the mode of thinking. And you can only do that, from my perspective, at a community level. So thus the importance of health literacy and programs where we have people going into communities and explaining the importance of health maintenance. The pandemic taught us that we just don't understand it. It's a concept that we don't understand and aren't able to navigate. And that resources comes with education. And that education is going to have to happen sometimes even as low as your high school level. And going into those communities, one of the communities that I work a lot with is Clarkston, and our refugees that are there. And some of the nonprofits that I've worked with through the Junior League have resources where we are going in and explaining simple things such as how to read a prescription. So a lot of times what happens with people who enter our healthcare system is if you don't understand what's going on, there's no buy-in, and it's not an important thing because you get lost in the shuffle. And so it doesn't matter how many health clinics we have. It doesn't matter how many prostate screening programs we have. It doesn't matter how many smoking cessation programs we have if people don't know how to navigate through them. And the only way to navigate through them is with education. So I think as a medical provider, my recommendation would be programs that are set up long-term that educate people about how to navigate healthcare systems and the importance of health maintenance and how over long terms it's beneficial to someone. Asking someone to come in to get a mammogram when it means taking off work. So you asked me to come in for a mammogram and my mammogram appointment is at 8:30, but I have to drop a child off to school and I have to ask my boss for an hour off of work. Those are things that prevent people from coming in from preventative and type of primary care services. So again, education and making sure that those resources extend to a point where they really are accessible and useful to people, available on the weekends, early mornings, evenings. Just again, assessing what the needs are at a community level and how the average person navigates those needs and those resources.
Okay, and just to follow up on that, and I know that you aren't yet on the board, but would you potentially see that as a responsibility of the Grady Hospital Corporation or of the FDHA in order to, undertake those activities?
The FDHA. So the hospital role, I think, should remain the same. The hospital as an entity, the responsibility of the hospital is what it already does, to provide acute care, surgical care, trauma services. Some of the needs in terms of accessing those services then should fall on the board.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioners who are here, see Commissioner Terry and Patrick. Would you all like to ask a question? Oh, Commissioner Bradshaw.
Commissioner Johnson, thank you very much. Less of a question and more of a comment. In District 1, we have elementary schools, new elementary schools, Dorville United, as well as Pleasantdale Elementary. And I'll note that the Board of Education has opened up little health clinics for obviously the children, but as well as the families in those communities. And that might be a model that you were talking about, where we're starting with younger groups of people and engaging not just the children, but the families at the same time. And that might be something to perhaps encourage Grady and DeKalb and Fulton DeKalb Authority to take a look at for the overall effectiveness and outreach that can achieve. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw?
Chairman, I'm good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Basenta Henry, we appreciate, I'm sorry, you can have the closing statement if you like, then I'll close it out.
Okay, I just have one other question, and if possible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm just looking here to see if this question has been asked or not, and if so, just tell me that it has, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
But could you distinguish for me the different roles, in a nutshell, not a whole lot, the different roles of the hospital authority and the medical authority? What would you say that those different boards, how would you distinguish their roles?
Are you asking about the roles between the hospital authority versus the corporation that runs the hospital? So my understanding is that the hospital authority, well, I'll start with the corporation, that the corporation is responsible for receiving the funds that are necessary for the day-to-day running of Grady Hospital. So the hospital has been leased to that corporation, and that corporation runs the Grady Hospital, is my understanding.
Okay.
Then the hospital board, in addition to overseeing the funds that run Grady Hospital, responsible for some of the resources that happen outside of the hospital. So DeKalb and Fulton County, and fanning out those resources to community partners and making sure that the community itself has access to those resources, not just at Grady Hospital, but within the community.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, Doctor, you want to make a closing, before you make a closing statement, thank you so much. You said in a nutshell that the institution cannot be the sole person responsible for a person's health. A person has to take responsibility from a behavior standpoint on their health, from what you eat, how you exercise, and all those things. So I'm glad to hear that perspective from you, because we put so much on the institution that we forget we have to have an individual responsibility for our health and wellness. So with that, do you have any closing statements you would like to make?
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I am like I said, a longstanding resident of the DeKalb community. My heart and soul is actually Grady Hospital. It is integral to who I became as a physician. That is a community that's near and dear to my heart. And as a physician, I make an impact one patient at a time during my interactions with them, but would love the opportunity at a larger, on a policy level, to make a difference to the community that I've called home for 20 plus years.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and the staff will let you know what's the next steps are. So thank you. And
thank you everyone for the work that you do. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Now, commissioners, we will bring up Attorney Bernard Taylor, Esquire. Make sure he gets on the screen. And thank you, sir, for offering yourself up for service to a dynamic hospital authority board that's doing great work. And we appreciate you, and as well as the CEO bringing forth another great candidate for us. What we'll do is we'll get started since Commissioner Davis Johnson didn't get a lot of questions in. I'm going to let her start it off with the first question. No, I'm sorry. Before the first question, Attorney Taylor, I want to afford you the time to have an opening statement. Tell us.
Thank you. I guess the first thing I should say is that it's an honor to be here. A little nervous having followed the doctor, though, who is excellent. I'll say that. But I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to have to be considered for this opportunity. I've lived in DeKalb County since 1982, and I've had the honor of representing the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority and Grady Memorial Hospital for over 38 years. I retired in 2020. And during those years, I followed all of the contract negotiations from 82 through 2008, with the leasing arrangement that is now being negotiated now. And I understand the relationship, and I understand how important and valuable the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority is, the Grady Memorial Hospital Corporation is, and both of those entities working together to provide outstanding healthcare for the people of Fulton, DeKalb County, and quite frankly, under many circumstances, the state. So that's, I guess, my opening.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll turn it over to another great attorney, David Johnson, to ask the first question.
Well, you know, I'll say this. I won't put myself in the same league as Attorney Taylor, but I will say thank you, Attorney Taylor, for offering yourself up. And also thank you for everything that you have already done in DeKalb County. I know that you were involved in a lot of community projects, and I do understand that you're a member of the 100 Black Men of DeKalb. And so I've seen your community participation in DeKalb. And so we appreciate that. So my first question is, would you describe what you perceive to be the role, duties, and responsibilities of all members of the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority?
It's my understanding, based upon the contract and based upon the historical relationship, that the duties and responsibilities is to be an oversight of the activities of the Grady Memorial Hospital Corporation. And in that role is to have significant oversight. And that's what I understand the relationship to be.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Rader.
Thank you. Please describe any of your previous experience that would be relevant to service on the FDHA board.
Well, I think I can help provide a historical reference for the various contracting contracts between Grady, the Greater Memorial Hospital Corporation now, and the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority. I've had the honor of working on those since 1982, as I indicated earlier. I'm a member of various community organizations where we have to deal with issues of healthcare and issues of children around, of course, the state and the country and internationally. Just so you understand, when I began practice here in Atlanta in 1982, I had the option to represent a lot of large corporations, and a lot of my colleagues, that's where the focus wanted to be. When I got here, my focus, I still do a good bit, or did a good bit of that, but my focus was to be able to represent Grady Hospital, because I saw what Grady Hospital provides to this community, and I wanted to be part of it. And I think I may have, well, I know I was the first African-American lawyer to represent Grady as lead counsel in various matters, but I think there may have been one African-American lawyer before me. So if I'm answering your question, Commissioner Rader, I'm all in, and I want to help in any way I can to help Grady, the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, to achieve its goal of providing their common goal of providing healthcare, good quality healthcare to the people of Fulton DeKalb.
Thank you.
All right. As an appointee to the hospital authority, what are the top 3 priorities that you will focus on during your tenure?
You know, I think my first priority is going to be to try to determine the priorities of both the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority and the corporation. I'll be very, very frank, because like I said, I've got a long history here. And I know that the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority ran the institution for multiple years since the 1940s when it was created. And it actually was created by our firm. And I know that in 2008, when we developed the leasing arrangement, there was obviously some shifting in responsibility as to who was responsible for day-to-day care and what oversight means. I think my priority would be to understand those priorities and then to try to make sure that we're working together. That is, the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority and the corporation are working together to achieve our common goals. So that would be probably the first one. I heard you ask that question before, so I wrote down a couple of things. Another priority would be to figure out what has been the consequences from the pandemic upon Grady. And I know one of those consequences has been the nursing shortage and the cost of making sure you have nurses on board. So I want to help to figure out how we can overcome that issue to ensure that we continue to have outstanding nurses down at Grady. And then I guess the third would be figuring out how to ensure that that the authority and Grady can continue to provide outstanding medical care and health care to the folks down at the patients down at Grady, realizing the economic problems. And I guess maybe there's a fourth. You know, I'm a lawyer, so I'm sorry. But the fourth one would be trying to figure out how Grady can continue to maximize its use of technology in providing outstanding healthcare. And I'm just thinking now about some of the things that the doctor ahead of me had to say. And I was thinking about telehealth and how that could help with development of community healthcare and that kind of stuff. I think Grady does some of that now, but really helping to expand that to the community. You're on mute, Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Next question, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Okay. Okay, that would be, what do you believe are the biggest challenges facing Grady? How do you plan to advise the Housing Authority regarding such challenges as you would see them?
I think the doctor hit the nail on the head. That the big challenge is to make sure that we are providing healthcare in a way that we can help our patient base. And by ours, I'm sorry, I used to represent Grady, so I always think of it that way. But the patient base to provide care or obtain care that will prevent them from suffering some of the health problems that we know are common in our community, from obesity and diabetes and those issues, and try to help to help the authority and the corporation to work together to develop programs that will diminish that impact on the community and create some way of measuring that so that we know what we're doing, and we can show folks that we are taking care of the community and improving the health of the community, so that we can improve the other side of the equation, which is the economic resources, so that folks will be willing, like good folks in DeKalb County and the good folks in Fulton County and the state, to continue to provide funding for that care.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Rader.
What do you believe is the biggest challenge facing Grady? How would you advise the hospital authority regarding those challenges?
Yeah, I just asked that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Then the next one is, is the extenuating circumstances question, as is always our habit. Is there any potential reason for recusal that could preclude or impede your service to the authority?
No, I mean, if I retired, you would think that because I was an attorney representing the authority and representing Grady all those years, that there might be some conflicts. But I retired at the end of 2020. So I've been away for over a year and a half. And so I don't see any conflicts in that regard. And I have always approached my representation of Grady from the standpoint that there are common goals between the authority and the corporation, and I've always encouraged that both entities work together to achieve those common goals. So I don't see that I would have any issues that would cause a conflict for me, if that was the nature of your question.
Yes, thank you. And I'll just follow up with the question that I had asked the other candidate. We are the previous Grady contract is from 1982, and we're in the process of renegotiating that with a new framework, a corporation involved, and that sort of a thing. What would be your priorities in the negotiation of that contract?
I want to ask a question because, like I said, I've been away from it for a year and a half. But I thought that what was going on was a negotiation of the 2008 agreement.
Yes, I mean, that has been subsequent, but the basic, I guess the basis of the contract was way back then.
That's right.
It's been amended in 2008. There's another MOU.
Yeah.
So I guess but we want to supersede all of that past relationship with something new and relevant to today. And so what we're wondering is what your priorities might be within that context.
Well, my first and most important priority will be to ensure that the authority, and I know I'm repeating myself, but those of you who've been around know that this is not an issue, but I think important, that the authority and the corporation acknowledge their common goals, and that in acknowledging those common goals, that the contract negotiation be pursued with those as being the first priority. that our common goal is to provide this health care for the people of Fulton and DeKalb County, and to be, to some extent, the vision of outstanding community health care for our state and quite frankly, in the U.S. And so I would want to make sure that our focus was constantly on that, and where disputes would arise, as they will, in regards to the interpretation of oversight and who has this responsibility and who has that responsibility. My encouragement would be to kind of figure out how that dispute fits into our common goals and who is the best entity of the two contracting parties to achieve that responsibility, assume that responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Attorney, would you like to have a closing statement?
Only that I am kind of surprised. I told Commissioner Davis Johnson that I was really surprised about this because of being considered for this, because this is not what I would have thought that I would have the opportunity to be considered for at some point when I look at my life, at least. And if chosen, I will try to represent the people of Fulton and DeKalb County well, the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority well, and the corporation to the extent that those common goals fit.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and for offering yourself up for service. Your dynamic career speaks for itself, and the staff will be in contact with you once we make our decision. So thank you, Attorney Taylor.
Thanks to all of you for considering me. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right. I think they both have left. I want to see if you all have any comments or questions, and then I'll entertain a motion.
Mm-hmm. I just like to say this is that I was a little late coming in, and that was because I had another meeting. So I would like to apologize for that. But I'm familiar with both candidates, and I've read the resumes of bios, I would say, of both candidates. And I think they are very capable people that would represent DeKalb well on the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority. So I would just, both of them are passionate about people. They've demonstrated their commitment to citizens in DeKalb by the work that they do and advocate every day for our citizens. So, I'm for both of them. I know that these positions need to be filled, and at the appropriate time, I'll make a motion to accept both candidates as our representatives on the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis Johnson. Commissioner Rader.
I don't think that I have a whole lot more to add, except that they seem to be well qualified for the nomination. I would hope that we would work closely with them and our other members of the Grady board as we go forward in this this contract negotiation and make sure that we're working kind of on the same page, because, I heard a couple of things from both candidates that were well informed about priorities that ought to be pursued in that contract. And, I really think that this is something that the committee at a minimum and the Board of Commissioners needs to be engaged in, a collaborative process rather than getting a contract, dropped on the desk in front of us and asked to endorse it as the way that it is. So, they seem to have great resources and helping to inform that. And I'm sure that that's the case with our other board members. So I would just encourage you, Mr. Chair, to take advantage of these resources and sort of help us to outline what priorities that we'd like to see in that contract, because this is a really important thing, and I'd love to see us come to some consensus on it this year.
Yes, thank you. Great point. And once they get up to speed, I will bring them back in July. That's why I'm doing it like a surgeon in terms of us trying to work on this agreement. I know we have 2 years, but I don't want to wait 2 years, but we'll try to get it done by the end of this year. I'll give them a chance to get up to speed orientation wise, and then we'll bring them in. I like that, to have them into part of the huddle as we go through the negotiations. And so, and we'll get an update on the Grady situation, because I'm trying to get a meeting with the Fulton County commissioners, and I know the elections are over. So now they'll have more time that we can try to sit down and talk, but also, like you said, meet with our appointees because they have some very great expertise and experience. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion for both of the appointees.
Yeah, I've made my motion.
All right, need a second.
Yeah.
All right, the motion is to recommend approval. I will second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. Is there any more comments? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the motion, show of hands and words. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. And now we'll go to our first agenda item is 1627. Consider consenting a de-annexation of property at Parkwood Road.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask that this item be deferred. I was informed 2 days ago that the owner has since sold the property.
Okay.
So I have to determine if that's the desire of the new owner.
All right. You want us to just defer for how long?
Say
60 days, 30 days, 60
30
days?
days. 30 days should be sufficient.
All right. Committee members, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we recommend deferral on the Parkwood Road de-annexation.
All right. Need a second?
Second.
Moved and properly second. Are there any more comments or discussion? Hearing none, this has been moved to defer for 30 days. All in favor, show of hands and words.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Greer. Appreciate your time. Now we'll go to a cooperative agreement for construction services for use of Department of Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs. Consists of piggybacking off the competitively let Sourcewell contract number GASTO3040820LRI for the provision of repair service of the boardwalk at Constitutional Lake Park, awarded to JLC Construction, amount not to exceed $422,066.03. We'll go over to Mr. Ellis.
Good morning.
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 Consideration of this item. There's considerable work needs to be done. I know if you've probably visited this park, you know much of it is on piers and it's extended over top of water. So we're doing some pier work. We're also raising the boardwalk, so we're not coming back to you in a few years and saying we've got the same problem. So we're hoping that we can extend the life of the pier. And the third thing I just wanted to mention, we're going to be using much more composite material, approximately 75%, because we'll be using some material that's still reusable. But extensive work, but we'll be glad to get this done. We have much of the good portion of it closed down at this time. So we just want to make it safe and do it and put it back in the best way possible.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions from the committee members?
I'm just trying to scroll down to see what the source of funding is.
272 approximately, let me see, 272, 066.03 is from mid-year to 2021 path repair money that we requested and received. And 150,000 of that, we were able to receive some mitigation money from a lawsuit where there was a next door neighbor that did not do some planning and so on, some planning of drainage properly. So there were several items under tree mitigation, some other things that we were able to with the help of Mr. Tom Kemp, the Deputy Chief Assistant Solicitor General, who was very instrumental in helping us obtain $150,000. So
okay,
that's
so the proposed total is $422,000, and we are going to use the settlement money plus additional money from 2021 in order to fund it.
That's correct.
And my only other question is, do we have any experience with, what is it, Gordian, or the company that we're dealing with here?
Yes, we've used them before.
JOC, that's who it is.
Yeah, Jock Construction. We've used them several times.
All right, and they are experienced and expert with this type of composite construction and that type of thing?
Yes, and you can see by the great detail they have there in their proposal that they've done this many times.
Okay, sounds good. I have no other questions.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we recommend approval.
Need a second? Commissioner Davis Johnson? Is she frozen or I'm frozen?
She looks kind of quiet there, so I think she might be.
She frozen.
Looks frozen. Yeah,
I'll make a second. I'll make a second. So I'm going on with our internet service over here. I'll make a second for this motion. It's moved and properly second. All in favor, show of hands and words. Aye. Motion carries. Now we'll go to the next item is 1628, Mystery Valley additional $2 capital improvement project fee. Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, thank you again. As you know, in Sugar Creek, we put the CIP capital improvement surcharge on each round of play, which to date we've already we've accumulated $53,000. So this helps go towards the capital improvements of the course. Basically, who uses the golf course are the ones that will pay for the capital improvement. And we're very sensitive about doing any type of price increase, but this is very well in line. We've made major improvements at Mystery Valley. So the amount paying still will be very much in line with what other golf courses are charging. So I've asked David Flaherty to go over our charges and what other people around us are charging, so you'll feel more comfortable about where we're falling. Well, we'll come back probably with incremental increases down the road. I really want to make these golf courses where they're very self-sustaining, and I think we could do that. We put a considerable amount of resources into them, and I believe folks see that and they're happy to pay this extra amount.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, up on your screen is the golf course fee comparison with current prices at Sugar Creek and Mystery Valley compared with other golf courses in the area. Sugar Creek and Mystery Valley are highlighted in yellow. We wanted to do two things here. We wanted to show you where our prices are falling in amongst other golf courses, and you can actually see Sugar Creek is currently the lowest fees, and Mystery Valley's in the middle, certainly not the highest. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is we do have the junior and senior fees at both Mystery Valley and Sugar Creek, and I showed those two there. Not all golf courses have junior and senior fees. Not all golf courses have the resident, non-resident fee, but we wanted to at least give you a fair comparison of where we are in position with other course fees. So if approved for the capital improvement, we're estimating for this particular year, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 for Mystery Valley. We did get a late start on managing Mystery Valley this year. We started March 1st, so we missed a couple months there. But that's pretty significant still, $40,000 for this year. And then, I'm sorry, Mystery Valley will be $50,000. Sugar Creek, we should end up with about $40,000 and money from the capital improvement. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you is that you've given us permission to adjust fees at Sugar Creek based on two things. The first one is market conditions. If we have bad weather, with too hot, if other golf courses are raising their fee, if they're lowering their fee, depending upon the situation. You've given us for Sugar Creek the ability to adjust our fees up or down 20%. And then in addition, you've given us the leeway for promotional events for such things as First Responder Day, Parent-Child Day, Military Day, et cetera. And we can adjust the fees 10% up or down based on that. So Typically, if we're going to do a promotional, we're going to drop the fees 10%. We're not going to raise them up. But I just want to wrap this up with telling you that Sugar Creek is going extremely well. Last night, I had a chance to review the Golf Now reviews by golfers. They actually go on and do a rating system. And while we do get a complaint here or there, people may try to play the course the next day after it rains. We may have top dress greens. 85% of all the ratings are between 4 and 5, and 5 being the highest. So we're very pleased with that. We're also hearing good reports on Mystery Valley with the new maintenance contractor out there, which happens to be the same contractor for Sugar Creek. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Rader?
I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously you have tried to peg the surcharge to, you know, the cost of play, but I'm wondering the degree to which this will be sufficient to cover the need for capital improvement.
You know, it's an excellent question, Commissioner. I will tell you, it won't be sufficient. It just depends on what improvements need to be made over the next 2 to 3 or 5 years. This $2 surcharge is certainly a good start, but I will tell you, and Chuck, you may want to chime in, but we still have bunkers at Mystery Valley. Half the bunkers, Sugar Creek, still need to be replaced. The cart paths at both golf courses at some point in what I consider to be the near future, 3 to 5 years, we're going to have to do some repairs on the cart paths. For example, Sugar Creek, probably cart path repairs, if we were to repair the whole system, it would be in the neighborhood of $200,000. So I think Chuck's idea, the director's idea, is hopefully to allow this CIP money to accumulate over the next 2 or 3 years and give us a good start. But in the end, our capital improvement requests or needs for the golf courses will be greater than what we can generate.
My experience has been from other courses have managed that once you get caught up on your capital improvements and keep it caught up, many times the CIP for this amount will keep you pretty steady on what you want to be for net profit loss. Also, operationally, we're getting really close of just for it to pay for itself. So hopefully, if we can start making dents into the capital improvement as well, then we won't have the complaints like we've received many times that, you know, the county's putting a lot of resources into these golf courses and really making the people who play are the ones that pay.
All right, thank you. And I just would encourage us to continue to match the fee against the need so that we can try to, you know, make resources available for other important improvements within our park system. You know, I continue to want to make sure that there is some parity and subsidy of recreational activities that the county supports. And at times, you know, golf has been the highest subsidy type of an activity that we have offered to folks. And obviously there's an equity issue involved with that. And particularly, typically our focus is on youth and, you know, and ensuring that both neighborhood and youth recreational needs are met. And I want to continue to keep that focus out there. So I would be very interested to have y'all come back and report to us on the sufficiency of, you know, the capital mechanisms that we're using to meet the need for this, for the maintenance and improvement of these facilities. So I'll look forward to that in the future.
Yes, sir. We've heard these comments before. This is exactly one of the reasons we're putting the CIP in place, is start etching towards that goal.
Great, thank you. I have a motion at the appropriate time.
Great question. Any questions, Commissioner Davis Johnson? All right, Commissioner Rader, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we recommend approval of the imposition of this fee.
All right, need a second. Second by Commissioner Davis Johnson. Is there any more comments? Hearing none, all in favor by show of word and hands for this motion?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And now we'll go to request for approval of a contract amount not to exceed $125,000 with Construction Education Foundation. Sorry, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, my computer froze on 1590. I was not able to vote on it, and I don't know what the vote was. Could you?
Oh yeah, we want to reconsider it. We can reconsider the vote.
I'm sorry.
It was 2-0. We passed it.
We recommend approval.
We recommend approval. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now we'll go to our next item. This is from Juvenile Court. Is Mr. Colette Odenibu's available? I'm gonna have him come on up and explain this progress part of youth bill, I assume. So I'll let you.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner, if you recall, in 2021, we received a grant from the U.S. Department of Labor for $1.1 million to run for 3 years. And this is our second youth bill grant that we're receiving from U.S. Department of Labor. So CEFCA was the contractor that we used for training for the youth who were participating in that particular project. And given the award of the new contract, we wanted to continue our relationship with CEFCA. And that's what we're requesting, Your Honor. I do have my grandson administrative manager, Ms. Keisha Jones, also online if you have specific questions that you may want us to answer.
All right, thank you so much. I'll open it up to our committee members on questions that you may have.
I don't have anything.
I don't either. I think this is a good program, and I'm glad that we're able to continue to attract grant funding for it.
Yes, it's a great program, especially those type of skills are so needed right now, especially with the shortage and what we're dealing with in the construction industry, and then teaching skills that last a lifetime. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that this item be approved.
Need a second?
I'll second the motion.
Moved and properly second for approval. Are there any more questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, show of hand and words. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Juvenile Court. Now we'll go to our discussion items. And our first item is we got to go one more. I'm sorry, 1653. This is an approved $100,000 for District 6 ARP appropriation that will be dispersed in $25,000 annual increments over 4 years to support the DeKalb Community Service Board, the APECS program summer camp. All right, Commissioner Ted Terry, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so as my role as the board member representing the BOC on the Community Service Board, as we know, the Community Service Board is our quasi-state and local mental health provider serving over 13,000 individual clients in DeKalb County, running the gamut from opioid residential treatment programs to mental health services, counseling. They run the crisis center, as well as work with the co-responder program with the DeKalb Police Department. And one of the programs that they have been doing over many years, but they're sort of expanding it and tweaking it for kind of post-COVID, is the APECS summer program. And in essence, it's an after-school program, simple as that. It's for at-risk youth. It's basically, families and or potential clients that come through the CSB to provide them, with, in essence, an after-school program. And so the Community Service Board has asked me to ask the commissioners for support of this program. They have presented a budget of $25,000 a year for the next 4 years, and it would be through the American Rescue Plan funds. And so I wanted to bring this before the committee. I'm more than happy to put in the first 25,000, but I didn't want it to be kind of a, just me doing it. I wanted to bring it to the whole commission for consideration. I think it's something that, really should be a county-wide approach. And I think it's serving exactly what we've been talking about with youth violence prevention, addressing the underlying issues related to whether it's mental health services, school performance, and certainly public safety. And I'm not sure if Fabio or anyone from the CSB was able to make it today. I know we had to move this meeting, but happy to answer any questions or entertain any thoughts or comments.
Wow, great program. I've known it over the years, and glad to see this investment. And Mr. Williams can answer. Commissioner Terry's put up 100,000, and seeing there's something that we can match as we go before. Just a question to hold right quick. But does anybody else from the Community Service Board like to speak? Hearing anybody from the committee would like to ask any questions. Hearing none. COO Williams, do we have any funding to match?
Well, I would imagine, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Terry. First, I want to be clear. So, Commissioner Terry, this is your allocation, as I read it, is for a total of $100,000.
Yeah, that is the ask of the Community Service Board. Yes, for $25,000 for 4 years.
Right, and so the simple answer, Commissioner Larry Johnson, is yes. We anticipate getting our next tranche within the coming weeks, and so this would be a program I would assume easily funded. And so what we would want to just work through is Commissioner Terry's allocation for all 4 years, totaling 100,000, or is it seed money for the first year and then we match with 25,000 over the following year? So I wasn't clear on that part, but either way.
That's right. That's what I'd like to do. Is I'd like to commit 25,000 for this summer, right? For right now. But just because we have that sort of 4-year window to spend this money, I wanted to kind of bring this notion of, can we set a 4-year funding in place so that they have it and they can really plan for the next 4 years. And yeah, would definitely love to entertain other commissioner or the administration sort of as a whole, reaching that 100,000 together.
So yes, I think it would be.
CO Williams.
Yes, I think it would be certainly doable. And I think we'll be having broader conversations on a lot of how the future funds would be allocated. Whether we would do this on an annual basis or simply fund them the $75,000 or $100,000 in one tranche for the 4 years. I mean, how we would want to handle logistics is a separate matter.
Okay, that's something we can discuss. Just put it on our parking lot list. Right, but I think is something. So Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm fine. I think I got mine because, okay, this $100,000 District 6 appropriation will be dispersed $25,000 over the next 4 years. And then if, and so whatever else the administration will come up with to match it would be in addition to this or will be spread it out. And that was my question. Would it be in addition to this? Would it be added on after those 4 years, after those initial 4 years?
So yeah. Please, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and exactly. All they need is $100,000. And so I'm committing $25,000 for the first year, and just really wanted to come to this is really a request from the CSB to get everyone on board to, fund the other 3 years. So we just need to fill in the $75,000.
Okay, so from this agenda item here, it shows that you are giving from your District 6 account $100,000.
Yep,
that would be allocated over the next 4 years, $25,000 per year. So, so are you withdrawing that?
No, I mean, I think simply put, if whether it's the committee or just the board wants to, in essence, just say that we'll fund the 100,000, and I'll do the first 25, and then between now and next summer, we could figure out, how to get the other 75.
So then, okay, so if you're, So if you are withdrawing this item and bringing up a new item,
yeah, we can substitute. If we need to.
Yeah, because this item here specifically said that you're giving $100,000.
I know. I just wanted to, we just needed to, I needed to get something on writing in an agenda item for discussion. So that's why it looks that way.
So you didn't mean to do that? I mean, it was not your intent to give $100,000?
Well, to be quite honest, if all y'all were like, hell no, we won't go, I'll find a way to fund it. But it's definitely in my mind, it's a county-wide sort of, it's a program county-wide. And, there's been like some discussions in the past of can't District 6 funds go to non-District 6 residents? And I didn't really understand sort of how that worked. And so my suggestion was just getting other commissioners that sort of fit the whole county, because we're not like saying only District 6 students can go to this APECS program. It's going to, anyone that's under the Community Service Board program.
Yeah, so, okay. So what I'm not, you put in a,
I'll be glad to match it if that's a, if that is a strategy.
I would just, if we can withdraw, we could say first you start off, Commissioner Taylor, with the 25, then we come back, find people who want to do an additional 25. We can add an addendum to the motion in the next 2 weeks. So that gives people a chance to decide. And then the other portion is while Zach is waiting on the tranche, the administration may make a decision to do funding, because I don't know what their priorities may be, but we're just trying to do the initial push like you're doing. You do you're doing the seed money and asking commissioners if they want to go on, but the long term is, since it's maybe a county-wide project, to see if the administration wants to be on board. So probably we get a new agenda item that says 25 for APECS now, and now 50, because now we can add District 6, 2, and 6 to that. I need to just see how much money I got in my account before I make a commitment. Commissioner Rader?
So can we just structure this contract so that it is one that is of indefinite quantity and open to multiple funding?
That's fine. We just got to make a different motion than is on the table, 1653.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is because I just like to look into stuff before I vote on something that is a little bit different. So if he wants to do the 25 now and let us discuss, because I'm trying to figure out what is the intentions of this, because I would feel that if it was something that that you wanted commissioners to match, which was fine, and I think it could be a good thing. I just need to look at it. It could have been discussed prior to this, or if it was something that could have been ongoing for the administration, which is feasible, it could have been discussed before this. But we have an item in front of us where total funding is coming from District 6 funds. And then you come today saying, okay, we need to get other funding. We may, but I think that it's something that, if we could discuss, and if I could look into and see, it's just very different from this.
Yeah, I understand. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because that means that I could bring anything in on a funding and then say, well, since it benefits the county, so I just want to look into, and I understand, and I think it's a good thing. I just would like, if you want to pull it and put in 25, fine, and let's discuss how you would want the funding sources to be.
Right, that's fine. So what we'll do is Commissioner Terry we'll pull this item since we have 2 weeks. You can bring back one for 25 plus districts 2 with their ARPA funding. And we'll look at long-term where we are with the administration who might just do the whole 100,000. But I think part of it is it $100,000? This program is $100,000 for the year. That's
for 4 years.
But I'm saying, what is their budget? What is their budget for? Is it? Can you make sure you get their budget?
Yeah, their budget is $25,000 for each year.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that's what we'll do. If you don't mind, we'll just do the one right here, which is bring it back for 25 and plus adding districts 2, and then we'll look long term for if commissioners want to match it. But we want to get at least initial funding because you want this for this summer, right?
Yeah, I think the great thing about this program is that the CSB, I think, just because they're we're already a partner and they're already doing things under ARP, we don't have to do an MOU. I think the process is a little bit cleaner than maybe a nonprofit. So I think we could. My understanding, Zach, is that we could deploy these funds can go immediately to CSB and they can have the funds right now for the program.
I think, yeah, the transfer of funds are a lot easier with a partner agency. And I'm thinking when I see it says the camp will operate June 6th through July 14th. If this is something you want to vote on, I guess the earliest possible is the 7th or something like that. So I think you want to move a $25,000 item.
Well, you can't because it's the CAL meeting, so you won't be able to have it till the 14th or whatever that second Tuesday is.
Right.
But it doesn't matter because CSB is going to do the program without our funding, so we're just going to add to it, and they can keep using it, to supplement what they're doing for this year. Because I know they're not waiting on the money right now because we didn't pass it yet. But so the program's going to be starting.
Okay.
So we can. They'll just have a reserve, which is good, so they can keep going. They might can add more kids once we do 25. You may have a waiting list, and then we just add more money to it and add more kids, and it might increase the weeks because school doesn't start till the middle of August. Commissioner Rader?
Yes, and I do think that time is of the essence on supporting this thing. I mean, at least Commissioner Terry did not walk it on and ask for a vote at the Board of Commissioners meeting on the thing. And I think that to delay this unduly is going to do a discredit to that effort. If the question is going between $25,000 and $100,000, then I think that we can amend this recommendation to approve the acceptance of his $25,000 commitment using his district funds.
Right.
But that we could suggest that the administration structure the thing so that it can be, continuously funded so that the term of the contract would extend beyond this year and be available for supplemental funding in the future. So both of those things I think could be accomplished now and allow the project to move forward, since it is something that needs to get underway sooner rather than later. And if indeed there is the potential for expanding the slots available in the program due to funding, then obviously any of us can expand the funding that we would allocate to it, but none of it can be done without drawing up the paperwork. And I think that we should not wait to draw up the paperwork, to bring something back that just is an amendment to reduce this from an appropriation of $100,000 from District 6 to the $25,000 from District 6 that will be the amount that needs to be committed today. So there is no expansion per se without further action by the Board of Commissioners to commit funds.
Right. And my thing is ideally it should have passed on the 24th. If you
I agree.
So,
I salute him for not, just trying to push it through on the 24th, that he wanted to bring it to the committee, but it seems as though by doing so, now it's gathering more impedance.
No, not really for me, because they could have passed with a consent item on the 24th, but he would have been given a whole $100,000 over 4 years.
Well, but this appears to be a commitment to sequential funding.
Right.
And that the 25 is really all that needs to be committed at this point. And that's why I'm suggesting that we go ahead and recommend a committee substitute that commits the 25 from District 6 at this point, but that requests the structure of the contract to be open-ended so that other funding can be added to it over 4 years.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I think that's so.
That is at the appropriate time. I'd like to make that as a motion for an amended recommendation.
Okay, Commissioner. Okay, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the 3 items that I walked on, or the 4 items that I walked on last week were, on Tuesday, on the 24th, was from my appropriations. I was not asking for any monies from any other commissioner or from the administration. So I wanted to distinguish that. And secondly, I would also like to say that the agenda item as written, I was 100% for, because those were his discretionary funds. And of course, if that's the way that he wanted them utilized, then I say go forward, because I think it's a very good cause. With the 25, and then I can understand what Commissioner Terry is saying. What I'm saying is with the $25,000 that he has committed from District 6 money, and then with the $25,000 that District 2 said, a state, that they will also commit, that's $50,000. So if we go on any further than that, then discretionary funds, I think it needs a further discussion. And so that's the only thing that I'm saying. So you're starting with $50,000 to keep in line what has been proposed, because the $25,000 would have been appropriated $25,000 per year. It wasn't like the $100,000 would be utilized for this year. So if you have the $50,000 to go forth on discretionary funds, then we can talk about funding for the other amounts.
So let me go ahead and make my motion. Let me go ahead and make my motion and see if we can get
this. Let's go.
My motion is to approve item 1653 with the following committee amendments. Number 1 is that we are approving this with currently $25,000 in appropriation from District 6, and that we are asking that the contract between us and the CSB be structured in such a way that it can be extended over the next 4 years, and that funding from other commission accounts or other sources can be added to that contract, either to extend its term on an iterative basis or expand the services offered to the population that's being served. So all we're committing is $25,000 from Commissioner Terry at this point, but we are asking the contract to be structured so that others can piggyback on it.
Let me add a question for you on that, because that's different than what I'm hearing. Why don't you just make it that Commissioner Terry is doing 25 and you, and that be the motion, instead of saying, because you're locking us in at 100,000 and we don't have commitment?
No, not the 100,000. I'm suggesting that it be an open-ended contract and that only 25 be committed from Commissioner Terry, but that the contract, like many of our contracts, is a on-call contract, so to speak, that would, would allow additional funding to go into it.
Well, I would just say to that first of all, I don't have the figures. You know, I don't know how many students. I don't know how many students are involved, and I don't know what their budget is. And so I'm saying to do anything but commit to what you and Commissioner Terry has committed.
Again, I haven't committed any resources beyond that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, but I'm saying you said 25,000 you're going to give.
Yeah, the 25,000.
It does not appear to me that 25,000 is needed in 2022, given the current scope of the program. What I would like is for the contract that Commissioner Terry is trying to execute to be sufficiently broad so that we can expand either the scope of the program or the years of the program, and that having done that, we can then, at our discretion as individual commissioners or the governing authority as a whole, can add money to be able to expand those parameters. So again, the scope of it is limited by the money that is allocated to it, and that the only allocation is District 6 funds in 2022.
Well, I don't know anything about the program, and that's what I'm saying to you. I don't know the budget of the program. I don't know the number of students for the program, and I'm saying it's a difference between putting your own money in and committing other factors when you have no knowledge of it.
That's what I'm just saying is that we're not committing anyone else's money.
Okay, so I would go along with the motion where we're putting in Commissioner Terry's discretionary money and your discretionary money, and then coming back and discussing. I'd like to know what their budget is, how many students are involved, and what the county could put in. Because until I know all of that, it may, we may want to go another route. So you're changing something from discretionary funds to.
That is not true. I do not know how you're drawing that from that. The words that I have said.
I don't have any information.
Okay, let's get back in order. Sure. I'm going to go to Commissioner Terry, and then I'm going to call for a motion, because I'm committed to the two people who said that they had funding, instead of trying to have an extended $100,000 contract. And then we'll come back after Zach look at his numbers and get more details, and then we can put some more funding towards it. But I rather, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So if you got money committed, let's go with that and then come back. So Commissioner Terry.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I think everyone's saying the same thing. In this reference to the contract, I think that's more just for the lawyers and purchasing, just to have something there that if any commissioner or administration or even me wanted to put more than 25,000, we wouldn't have to go through this whole other contract. It would just already be there, and it only gets spent if we or others allocate it. So at this point, you're exactly right. We're just allocating 25,000 for my District 6 ARP funds. They'll have the funds available for this program. And then if more money is added later on, could be later this year or next year, all we'd have to do is a change order or something to that nature. The contract will already be there, and it will just be less bureaucratic.
Well, I don't see how we can get, I'm sorry. I don't see how we can get a contract when we don't know. I have no information. I don't have the needed information that I could make a decision on. So I say, if you got $50,000 to put in, let's put it in, and then let's discuss what else is needed once we get information on funding.
Yeah, can we do, let's make it as simple as possible. Let's just approve the 25,000. And then Law Department, can you look at the language that Commissioner Rader is proposing, and we bring it back to our committee members so we can set it up in a way that if folks want to add to the pot, we are able to. It also gives Williams a chance to see if this can be a countywide initiative. And, you know, and Commissioner Terry may not even have to add money to it. So I'm just trying to give them something because the camp is started. And then we come back and try to add more investments later. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Be glad to do so.
All right, Commissioner Rader.
Well, I would just only state that the information is attached to our agenda. There's 4 pages, 2 of which describe the program in detail. The 3rd page describes budget to total $25,000. And the 4th is a summer risk assessment. So this notion that the information is not available to the members of the committee is inaccurate. And I think that we ought to be ready to take action when we come to this meeting. And, you know, really the only thing that I have asked is that the contract be structured in such a way that others can piggyback on it. Not that they have to piggyback on it, but that they can piggyback on it. And I don't know why that is so controversial.
Not controversial.
Particularly since it was shared with everyone prior to the meeting.
Let me add as the chair, it's not controversial. I'm just looking at what we have in front of us, which is a $100,000 request at 25 per year. And now we're hearing some other information that was not part of the original discussion. Even if you do have all the information, it still requires some thought and some deliberation. And so I'm just trying as the chair to keep this as simple as possible. Let's deal with what we have in front of us, which is the 25. And all I hear is Commissioner Rader and what Commissioner Terry talked about for the future. It's all like we said, we all agreeing, but it's different ways we're trying to get here. But I would just try to, so we can get the funding for the summer camp, which will already be started, at least get to the 25,000.
And I would say that the information pertaining to this particular agenda item is attached, but all of the questions, all of the information about the program is not. And so I'll go back with what you were saying. If we go with the 25,000, if Commissioner Rader decides, because he said he would match it, but if we just go with the 25,000, I'm good. And come back. You've already asked Vivian to look into contract possibilities. Fine, I'm good with that.
All right.
So the motion is to approve $25,000.
You need a second.
Second.
All in favor.
And that's from District 6 funding. Okay.
Is there any more questions or comments? Hearing none, we are all in favor of the motion, words and hands, aye. Motion carries to carry the 25,000 over, and we will have that review and bring it back to our next meeting. Law Department and Zach should have the information needed for future funding. And any commissioners who want to give has the opportunity to add and invest into this program. All right, so let's go to discussion items. Grady Hospital quarterly update, Mr. Phillips or Ms. Ernst?
Commissioners, I believe that the update today is regarding nursing issues. And a nursing shortage. I believe there was a PowerPoint circulated by Mr. Manson yesterday afternoon late around 4:30. And so the quarterly update that I think Grady is intending to provide does not relate to the operating agreement, but does relate to the issue of nurse staffing. Am I correct?
Okay. I guess I'm getting them mixed up. I just thought when you say Grady update, I'm focusing on the agreement, but
yes,
you're
sir.
focusing on this issue. Okay, let's hear it, Mr. Sao. You attorney or doctor?
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Anthony Sao, the Grady Health System CFO, and I'm joined by Mr. Timothy Jefferson, who's our Grady Chief Legal Officer.
All right, take it away. Bring up the PowerPoint.
Good morning, everyone. And actually, there's a PowerPoint that we wanted to present that reflects the issue that we're facing here at Grady as a result of the pandemic. If
you both have the capability to either one of you can share your screen if you like. I was not provided it. It may be here, but I don't have it.
Okay. Anthony, do you have the PowerPoint on your screen?
Yes, let me attempt to share with everyone. It's telling me I cannot modify or share still. I'm sorry.
Well, that makes no sense because you do have co-host permissions. If someone can forward it to me, I don't know if Mr. Manson or
law
someone can forward it to me.
Give it to you.
Or law department.
Ms. Ernst, do you have it? You can share it.
It's been forwarded to you, Mr. Metelsky.
I think Mr. Manson has the draft.
Okay.
All right, I'm still waiting for our email system. Give me a minute, please. Or Mr. Manson, if you can share it. Right now, it still hasn't gotten into my inbox.
Yes, sir. Can everyone see my screen?
It's the cover memo to it.
Right.
Cover email rather than the presentation.
In other words, put it in presentation mode, Mr. Manson, if you can. There you go. You may need to hit enable editing for, there you go.
And then go to slideshow.
And actually, I did just receive it, so I might be able to do it if you don't get to slideshow in time. Let me see here.
Right there. And full screen.
All right, I think I've got it. Let me do this real quick. My apologies. Thank you for sharing it. All right, let's get back to the other screen. Share screen. And mine's doing the same thing for some reason. Okay.
So can you all see the screen, the slide on the screen? Basically, this is
make it bigger.
All right, let's see if I can do that now.
That's it.
Okay. And,
yes,
and Anthony, if you want to speak to this slide, but I'll just open by saying that this is an issue that arises from the pandemic that is stressing the Grady health system significantly. Most health systems, as a result of the pandemic, have found themselves in a position where we're facing workforce shortages, particularly in critical areas such as nursing. And Grady is no different. A lot of nurses are leaving the profession. A lot of nurses are joining agencies where they can make a great deal more money as a result of the shortages. And Grady is finding itself in a very difficult position because a lot of our nurses are doing just that, leaving the profession and joining agency staff nursing agencies. So that is making it very difficult for us to retain our qualified and our best and brightest nurses. It puts us in a position where we have to, in order to compete, we have to pay much higher rates to these agencies just to keep the nurses on staff and be able to staff areas that are critical to the hospital. And so, and again, all of this is brought on by the pandemic, and we're now trying to fight through it. And so this slide essentially shows, some of the staff, the numbers as it relates to staffing and support, and that we're facing here at Grady. there is a national labor market shortage of nursing. We all know that, and there is a shortage here in Georgia that is worse than any place else. And again, it affects Grady in ways that are making it very difficult for us to provide direct care to our patients. We're fighting through it. We're trying to get through this issue. Unfortunately, we are faced with numbers that create a very dire predicament for us. And then so we're coming back to the county, and we're requesting help with this issue. As a result of the nursing shortage, as a result of the higher cost that we're having to pay for the nurses through staffing agencies and others, we're going to be running a very negative margin for the year that is going to create a significant predicament for us. And it's something that we haven't seen in the probably last 10 years. And unfortunately, in doing so, it creates pressure on us in other areas because, if we're losing money, then, it makes it difficult for us to pay our vendors and to pay, staffing, pay staff and others. And so that's why we're coming to the county.
Can you get to the next slide?
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony, you may want to speak to this slide.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. As Tim stated, our costs, specifically with nurses, as we're seeing more nurses leave Grady, they were up 62% year over year. And what that encompasses, we've had to staff as many as 420 agency nurses as our nurses started leaving to take some of those lucrative travel contracts. Agency nursing used to be $60 an hour for us. During the pandemic, it's been as high as $225 an hour to get an agency nurse in the door. And it's a national phenomenon that we all have gone through for the last year. So this slide simply talks through how that spike has impacted Grady. It's particularly in the 2022 months, as the state of Georgia, who prior to 2022 was staffing Grady with upwards of 70 and 80 nurses. The state of Georgia pulled that plug on that program and no longer supplied those nurses, therefore rendering their contract for Grady to pick up starting in January. So that has exacerbated the problem.
62%.
And so in total, what we have been talking to the counties about is a $22 million shortfall from the first quarter. This shortfall is totally driven by labor. While our revenues have been off slightly, those are things operationally we're planning to improve and make the adjustments to cover the revenue shortfall. But we're coming to the counties asking for a split of the $22 million shortfall related to the labor shortage that has been caused by the pandemic.
I got you. So you asking for $11 million.
So
essentially, yes, we're asking for the split between the two counties. I believe it's about 55-45. So for DeKalb County, it would be about $11 million.
All right, and $11 million will get you. How long will the nurses stay for $11 million? And will you still have enough to cover your caseload?
So our nursing program is built a lot on attracting and recruiting and training new nurses. Through the summer efforts, we have 190 new nurses that will be coming on board between June and July, new programs, new classes. And so that money's and the expectation for the financial projection gets us through this first half of the year when those new nurses are now onboarded. And that's a big, that'll be a huge impact for us, getting those new nurses started.
So the $11 million will cover the people who are working, or will it help? Are we paying for those ones you're training?
The ones that are working, correct.
What about the ones that we're training? Because part of it is, I understand about the working ones, we want to cover that, but why don't we provide funding tuition reimbursement or something so we can incentivize people to go into nursing school so you can build the bench, because they will come in at the salaries that you now have. And then because they owe us a commitment, at least get them a year commitment or two, because if we're paying your tuition, you need to stay with us for 2 years, and you can stabilize it and find out, you know, and keep your costs at a certain level without them leaving. So why we're not trying to subsidize that training program and also help you with the nursing capacity as well? Because I don't want to just give you lead. Yeah, I want to get the ones who need the training, because you can get them to kind of commit to stay. And then you got, you know, some young nurses, some folks in the field, but they may be more committed long-term. So why we didn't go that route?
So you're spot on, Chairman Johnson, and that's already a part of our program. We already pay tuition reimbursement, so it's baked in the cost of these first 4 months that we've incurred. But additionally, we've reached out and got philanthropy dollars, 23 million commitment to help Grady and Georgia State triple the size of their nursing classes. And that would include just what you spoke of. The grant dollars will cover your tuition, and you're expected to commit to Grady for 2 years coming out of nursing school if you so agree.
Beautiful. I just want us to focus a lot more on that as well, because it will help you long term. I know we got to do a short term gap, but long term, getting these students and helping them pay their tuition, that encourages more students to go in the field, and also getting more CNAs who are 2 years in, but get them another 2 years to get that RN certificate, which I think Mercer is doing a good program, which you can get it in 6 months or a year. But I digress. I'll go to Commissioner David Johnson, then Commissioner Terry, and Commissioner Rader.
Yeah, good morning. So my question is, okay, the 62% increase that you spoke of.
Put that slide back up.
Yeah, one moment, sir. And my apologies, I actually closed it while I was working on something else. All right, and which slide again? I'm sorry.
The percentage of the increase of salary.
Slide 4.
All right. Great, give me 1 second again. There we go, share screen.
Okay, so that is a, so will that be a permanent increase, or is that an increase during the pandemic? I mean, so we're not going to go back. That's what I want to know.
Unfortunately, you're correct. We don't anticipate it, and in all of our AHA organizations we're a part of, no one anticipates that we're going back. It's where will the market settle in the coming quarters, years, when the pandemic is much more minor and or less intrusive on hospital beds and nursing. And so there's a lot of studies and a lot of data being crunched by a lot of think tanks, but no one is believing we're going to go back to the days of 2019. So fundamentally, we're going to have a higher cost model, delivery model. You're absolutely right.
And so are you looking for a permanent increase with the counties, or are you looking for other funding sources, or, you know, because if you need it this year, will you need it next year? And so
twofold. One, this year's request, the 22 million split between the two counties, is what we think we're going to need this year. And that, based on our projections and the cost controls and reductions we have in place, we project to be fine for the rest of this year. Secondly, what does the future hold? Tim can talk a little more, and you guys touched on it earlier today with the 2 candidates for FDHA. That's going to probably be contained within the confines of what the new contract needs to look like.
And And this nursing shortage, is that at every level of nursing, like RNs, LPNs, technicians?
It's every level. We, and a number of large health systems around the country, we're putting pathway programs in place as rapidly as we can. To Grady specifically under health equity, we're at the high schools rolling out discussions, having roundtables, talking careers. We're working on several pathways to EMTs, nursing assistants, LPNs, RNs, because the projections now with estimates from 20 to a third to 33% of nurses walked away from the field during these 2 years. We're going to be in a shortfall and a race to grow our own talent in the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. And in this amount of monies, are all of these permanent employees, or are some of them temporary? Is it an integration of both, or what?
So staff side nurses, we were up to, in the peak, 40% temporary agency nurses at our bedside. That number is now down to far more manageable, 26% or so, depends on what day it is. But Grady is a training site for a number of nurses that hit the Georgia market. And so with the influx and a lot of new efforts into retention, we're expecting our turnover, once we hit a steady state with the pandemic, to allow us to have a number of nurses that's manageable and allows us to control our costs and stay financially viable.
Okay, thank you.
But Commissioner, we've been able to bring the number of agency nurses down by directly competing with the staffing agencies for nurses. In other words, paying our nurses a higher rate in order to keep them from joining and staying with the staffing agencies.
Oh,
and that has enabled us to bring the staffing number down, that agency number down, and then we hope to continue that trend. But you know that presents us with a higher cost. In order for us to pay our nurses a higher rate, we have to put more money into the pot for nurses. For nurses, coming to the county and asking for some help with that.
Yeah, they free agents now. So free agent, you can get what you want on the market. So Commissioner Terry.
First time in 20 plus years, everyone became a free agent at the same time this year.
That's right. Commissioner Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had a few questions, but I wanted to start with just a kind of an observation that I think what Mr. Saul and Jefferson have pointed out is indeed a national trend. It's something that we've known about for a long time, actually, as a country, because the demographers have been warning us of the silver tsunami. And it's not only just that more people are retiring and aging, but the nursing profession is aging. And so an aging workforce and an aging population without, whether it's enough immigrant guest workers to replace them or just, recruiting people into the field in general. As an aside, I'll just say that's why I'm a big supporter of Medicare for All, because with the Medicare for All universal healthcare system, we literally would have the universal system to pay for all this. But as of now, Medicare is going to go bankrupt for this very reason. This is not the very reason, but it's the big piece of it is who's going to actually do the care. I wanted to ask the question about the nurse numbers, because is that just RNs? Or is it CNAs, LPNs, RNs, and then advanced practitioners?
So the numbers displayed on that slide are just RNs.
Okay, so the focus right now is just on the RNs. There's no shortage of LPNs, CNAs, or other.
The shortage is more controllable in the other ranks. APPs and advanced practitioners have been a very stable workforce over this time. So we are hoping there's not another shoe that's going to drop with APPs and physicians.
Okay, and then I think you answered it, but just can you clarify? So if we have CNAs or LPNs working for the system, there is opportunities for them to go to school and get their RN.
Right, so that's the new programs we're putting in place to help fund their advancement to RN.
Okay, gotcha. And then in terms of the education partners, is it like through, I know we have Georgia Piedmont has, the lower level nursing programs, and I imagine Georgia State is the other one. What are the university partners for this?
So Georgia State is with the new commitment from the philanthropy, the $23 million. That's with Georgia State. But we also have rotating clinical sites with Mercer and some of the other programs that are in the area.
But we've always had a relationship with Georgia State for nurse trainees rotating through Grady and other nursing schools. But what we're trying to do at this point is to ramp up the number of nursing students coming through Georgia State that we would have access to upon graduation.
Gotcha, understood. I did want to mention that there is this, it's coming out of I think the State House and State Senate. There's a global talent sort of workforce committee that I think the state is working on. It's sort of tied to immigration, more sort of maybe like merit-based sort of preferences. I'm sorry, not merit-based, but education-based. So are y'all participating in that at all? Or are there any discussions about, how the guest worker program or the refugee resettlement program or other immigration sort of pathways could bring in more of these skilled professions like this?
Well, we have always had programs in place where we try to recruit as many healthcare professionals as we can, oftentimes from foreign countries, and and including helping with visas and other activities. And so we do that. I'm not familiar with the program that you're referring to at the state capitol right now, but
it's a study committee. It's just a study committee. So I think what I want to suggest is that I think all healthcare institutions should engage in that, because they're thinking of it as like tech workers and I think doctors, but I assume it's sort of this gamut of like the professions that we know we have shortages on. And, I think one of the strategies of worker shortages is through immigration. That has been a hallmark of American history. And so I wanted to encourage y'all to look into that.
We can do that.
Go
ahead, Mr. Saul.
What I would comment is we have had discussions with the American Hospital Association and colleagues at Johns Hopkins, USC, and other places. And in the month of April, no medical visas were getting approved. And there was numbers in the 20,000 range that were nurses trying to come from the Philippines that all were just logjam.
Okay, so that's something that we could ask our members of Congress and Senate to help with, right? Is that something that we can help y'all with?
That would be great.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that we write a letter or something to our senators and members of Congress to look at that, because that's really concerning that there was no medical visas in April, and that's really concerning.
That's unusual. I just need you to give the background to me, Mr. Saul, on that information, because you have administration that's friendly towards that. I don't see something else going on. That I just need to have all the information before we just so we can add to that, because that's amazing. We need that now more than ever.
I will get that information to you, sir.
One last question I wanted to ask in terms of our school system, and are there any opportunities for us to work with our school system on that like pre-med, pre-nursing kind of track in high school? Do you see any opportunities for us to sort of promote that local pipeline?
That's where we absolutely have to go. We have to go to the high schools. We have to get energies around young students thinking of the medical profession at another level than what we've done over the last 10 years, because we're going to be competing with talent, and we need to tell our story and appeal to those who want to really help and be such pillars in their communities.
Okay, very good. I know that we were speaking with members of the school board as well as the superintendent and the administration over there about a college and career academy. That's something that DeKalb doesn't have, actually. And over the years, I think we've pursued it, but never formally adopted a college and career academy. We actually, I think me and Commissioner Bradshaw visited the one in Rockdale County, and they have a whole like nursing section, right, where it's sort of it's basically a magnet school where if anyone wants to pursue like auto mechanic, nursing, early childhood education, they basically go to that college career campus, get everything they need. So they really just go right into sort of the college with enough credits, and it sort of kind of expedites that what you talked about earlier about just getting folks in that educational process to get educated. I will note actually there is apparently a shortage of nurse educators as well. So I don't know if that's something, I assume Georgia State's good there, but are there opportunities for us to help them identify nurse educators? I heard
the funding that Grady and Georgia State received will help to increase the number of educators. That was another limiting factor. And some of Grady's leaders, DNPs, are interested in helping out in that area as well. So that has been a limiting factor in this market. And there are a number of states and counties in other states that are doing just that. And so the more we can partner with the efforts you guys want to do with the school systems, the more it just helps us all as an entire ecosystem.
I know we have participated in career days in Fulton County because we just had one not too long ago at Westlake High School where members of our team participated, and just to encourage these high school students to go into the medical professions. So I haven't seen much of that in DeKalb, but I know we've been doing it in Fulton. So it may be something that we just need to expand.
Yeah, y'all can share what you're already, if there are other counties you're working with. I mean, if it's Fulton, absolutely, let's look at it doing it DeKalb. I think that if we're gonna, what I'm hearing is we got money we need to put into the system right now to address the current immediate need. But I really want us to think about what investments we can make that really strengthen that pipeline, because the silver tsunami, it's a long tsunami. It's going to be existing for, 20 years until that population, sort of demographic sort of balances out. And, it's going to impact all of us. I mean, it's going to mean more workers having to take time off of work to take care of a family member, a parent that might be aging because they can't afford the nursing coverage, right? And so this right here impacts our entire society in a way that just makes things a lot more costly and inefficient. And then unfortunately, the sad result is that the seniors in particular sort of suffer the most because of it. Because sometimes they don't get the right care they need.
Mr. Saul, you don't have to let Commissioner Terry speak because I don't want to keep going back and forth.
Yeah, that's it. I just want to say that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we know it's a crisis, not a crisis, because I don't know when it becomes normal, because we've been dealing with nursing shortages about the last 30 or 40 years. So it's not even a crisis. It's some structural things that has to happen. First of all, with the federal government and how they may do visas and how they do Pell Grants. Then at the state level, we got to recognize that Grady is not a county hospital anymore. You do regional stuff, you do statewide stuff, and everybody needs to put some money in the game. The state is using ARPA money, but now ARPA money is gone. The state needs to provide money for just regular operations. And then you want money from ARPA. ARPA is only going to last this year. What happens after this year? So you all have to come up with a long-term sustainable plan that sustains long after ARPA is gone, because everybody's looking at this ARP money like it's going to last forever. So everybody got their hands, everybody want a piece of it, but you only can spend $1 one time. So we got to start thinking if something is going to be a long-term investment, what is the plan, like Commissioner Davis Johnson talked about, after this is over? Because the shortage is not going away. The other part is we do have nursing programs in high school. I got one at Columbia High School, which is very successful, CNA program, been going on for years, and they work through WorkSource. And those students would love, I think I paired a couple of students to come down there with your Grady volunteer program so they can get more experience. So we do have programs specifically for nursing in our high schools, but that's going to require you to work with the school system, not DeKalb County. And so we can introduce you, but we need to let the school system work with that and try to bring all those entities together. So your ask is $11 million. What I'm going to recommend to the committee is that since it is ARP funding, that Mr. Williams, that you come back with working with our CEO to bring us back a a solution, and you said the monies will be in place in the next couple of weeks. Of course, Grady can't wait. We need to help them now, but if they're looking at ARP money, that's the only solution we have that we can work on. The other long-term solution is, I remember when Grady had another crisis back in when Dr. Oganabe was here. That's like your fourth CEO, and DeKalb County gave $18 million from the money we saved from the bond initiative. And Mr. Jefferson knows this. He got a lot of history. And we gave all that money to Grady that we was from our debt savings. So I don't know, Mr. Williams, is another bond debt savings coming up in the future. You can look at that we can look at how much of that savings we normally would keep, but we can give towards a long-term process. So will that be good enough for the committee so we can move on to the next two items? Mm-hmm. All right, so that's what we'll do. And Mr. Jefferson and Saul work with CEO. So Mr. Williams, can you come back in 2 weeks?
Absolutely, we can give an update.
Have the money by then. Even though President Biden told me the money would be here May 15th, so I don't know why you hadn't received it yet, but I'm
okay. Yeah. So the primary source, of course, the first source we would look at will be ARP, and I think it's important for us all to continue working with the state, because the state has, a lot more funding than the county has for this sort of thing, and this is an issue facing all hospitals throughout the state. So not only is it a national issue, it's a statewide issue. But we're hopeful that by the middle of June we have the next ARP allocation.
Okay. Just bring us back to solutions.
Wherever we are. Okay.
Long-term plan, Grady. We need a long-term sustainable program, because you not only have a shortage in nursing, you got a shortage in therapists, social workers, and I can go on and on that's being impacted by this field. So bring that back. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And Mr. Williams, we look forward to having a solution-oriented approach at our next PECS meeting that we can bring back before the board.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners.
You're welcome. Now we'll go to Cottage Court Development. Planning, sustainability. And Mr. White said he had 6 slides.
Yes, sir. Something like that. Give me 1 second. Let me get queued up here.
You thought I wasn't paying attention, didn't you?
I see.
Mm-hmm. All eyes are not asleep. Closed eyes not asleep now. Remember that.
That's what the seniors say. All right. Good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon. So staff, in conjunction with Commissioner Terry's team, we've been working probably the last 8 or 9 months on revisions to the zoning ordinance to address cottage home development. It's not a new concept. Currently, we have regulations related to cottage style development in the zoning ordinance with a few development standards that address that particular type of development type. But in conjunction with Commissioner Terry's office, they've taken a comprehensive look at our zoning ordinance and the cottage regulations that we have, and have proposed some amendments, and they've begun the process of doing some community engagement related to this particular development type concept. And so you all are acutely aware of the housing concerns both locally and nationwide. And so this is a potential, one of several remedies to try to ease the conditions that we have with housing here around the county, and trying to provide another alternative for a smaller housing type, diversity of housing, hopefully affordability where that helps. And then also, and with some of our aging community members, giving them the opportunity to stay in some of these neighborhoods and downsize without having to totally uproot their lives. And so we've been working with Kim Morrison and Will with the MicroLife Institute on revising these regulations. And so what I'll do is turn it over to Kim to take you through the bulk of the presentation, and then I'll come back around at the end. So I'll turn it over to Kim.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so this slide really just talks about, why we need this and some of the benefits of cottage developments. They really allow aging in place, which is a huge need that we've got all over DeKalb County in the metro area. It allows for mixed income housing, pedestrian friendly development with all the paths that connect the homes and the common space. And just a lot of other really great reasons why we need to really improve the ordinance that DeKalb already has to make these communities serve our county better. So next slide, Brandon. We've just got a couple photos of the Cottages on Vaughn, which is the pilot project done in Clarkston, Georgia. If anyone hasn't seen it, we do monthly tours, and we'll be doing another one in June. Next slide. Just a couple other photos to give you an idea. So these were a little smaller than what DeKalb County's ordinance allows for, but they could really be, these are 500 and 250 square foot units. They can go up to 1,000 square feet just by adding a second level. So this is a similar type development, which is currently allowed for in our current ordinance. Next slide. So this is just a slide that really talks about the demand for this housing type, this one of the missing middle housing types. So our household sizes are getting smaller. 80% of American households right now are either singles living alone, couples with no kids, or adult roommates, or the single family parents. On the other hand, what's actually being built by our typical builders are homes that cater to our nuclear families, our 4-person households. And so you can see there's a huge mismatch of most of the housing being built for larger families, whereas our family sizes are getting much smaller. And so cottages are just one type of housing that's a smaller footprint. And so it helps to meet this demand. And so making it more feasible for builders and developers to actually build this housing type will allow us to add more housing to address this critical demand. Next slide. The next couple slides, and I'll go through them relatively quickly, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me or we can come back to it. But there are 5 slides just talking about the major changes that we focused on with this text amendment. And the first one is really our lot sizes and coverage ratios. And typically cottage communities are smaller homes oriented around a common area. And that design feature helps to allow for community engagement and stronger communities where the homeowners really know each other and can help and support each other. And so the lot sizes typically should be smaller than what's typically allowed in that same zoning for a large house, both because the house is smaller and because you've got a larger common area. And so this recommendation is to really tweak what our current lot minimum sizes are just for cottages, as well as the lot coverage ratio just for cottages. And so this shows what we've recommended to reduce the lot sizes to. The overall density at this point is not changing. It's really just to allow for larger common areas and smaller lots. Next slide. So the next thing we looked at was where are these cottages allowed? And in general, with the high price of multifamily land right now, most experts really recommend cottages are most practical if they're allowed by right in single family zones. And so currently, cottages are allowed in R60. It's the only single family district they're allowed in. And then the RSM, MR1 to HR1 through 3, and then RNS. So we've proposed that they basically be added to R75 and 85 by right. And then in R100 with a special administrative permit, since R100 is a bit different character in terms of just larger lots. We've also recommended less parking, just they're smaller houses, smaller household, less need for parking. Next is the design elements. And so in order to keep these affordable, we recommended these units allowed to be 2 full stories. Currently, they can only be up to 1.5 stories. So by allowing them to be 2 stories, they'll be able to be built more cost effectively, and those savings can be passed on to home buyers. And then currently the ordinance is lacking, and then it doesn't really say how many units make up a cottage. And so we felt like that was just an oversight. So we're recommending to correct that with a minimum number of units and a minimum overall parcel size, and then really create a sense of community with some other design elements. So we've added some language requiring it to really be community oriented. And then this is, I think this is our last slide, talking about porches, as well as how the facades interact with the community are really important design elements for cottages. And we really want to protect the DeKalb County residents. Right now, the ordinance doesn't really have strict regulations that would ensure that a really nice community is built. And so we really wanted to tighten it up by making some more stringent recommendations that the porches be larger, they face the common area, and that our street-facing facades are very respectful of the surrounding communities. So we don't have blank walls, we don't have our backs turned to our communities. We are both part of our internal community within the cottage, and then also our external communities. This is really tightening up the regulations. Oh, sorry, there was one more. Same thing with pedestrian networks and fences. Again, these are just really tightening up the regulations to make it more beneficial for the surrounding community. And where we're at right now in terms of community engagement, we've done a number of community engagements just to really get the public up to speed on, what's currently allowed, what a cottage development is. So we've done presentations in December to each of the community councils, letting them know about the free Cottages on Bond tours, as well as 2 one-hour info sessions that we held in January. We had a number of people attend that, both on Zoom, as well as we've had 240 watches. That was as of last week. We may have had more since then, but we've had over 200 people watch this presentation to date. And so they hopefully have a better knowledge when we propose these amendments to them. They come with a more educated level of information. We also did a community council specific tour on February 19th, and we had 12 community council members attend, and we had really great response to that. And then we did another presentation just reminding the public that we have that recorded session in April. And then the last stat here is just all of the tours that we have done at the Cottages of Bond to date. And we've had 136 DeKalb residents that we've been able to capture. Not everyone registers, so we may have actually had more than that, but 136 registered and attended. So great community engagement. And the next steps, we're hoping this will be in the June, July cycle. And so we are waiting on input from the Builders Association that the planning department's working on, and then it will go to community council and start the process.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing us those choices and different presentation. I have a few questions on the way to our committee members. You have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
What are the costs of these cottages?
It varies on obviously the area and the land and how much the development is. For the Cottages on Bond development in Clarkston, they started at $109,000. That was the starting point. So very, very affordable considering how expensive it is to build right now.
Mm-hmm. How much? 109,000 to up to.
The highest went, the last 2 homes we sold at market, they were the larger homes and they had solar added to them. They had a solar package added to them. And we had listed them, I think, at 180,000. It was in the height of the real estate frenzy. And they actually went for the last 2 sold over ask at like 200,000. The other units were done as pre-sales and they averaged 150,000 for the homes.
Okay. And these cottages range, you said, from 500.
250 is the smallest.
250.
Yeah. And then the next was 500 square feet, and there's a 200 square foot bonus loft, which people have been using generally as an office or an extra guest.
And you're trying to get an increase to 100, a change, so that you can go up to 1,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so currently, currently in DeKalb County, you can build these, and the square footage range is, it's a very small, narrow range. It's between 800 square feet and 1,200 square feet. And so one of the recommendations was to remove that 800 square foot minimum so that we could build them more cost effectively, and the market would determine what that minimum size is.
Oh, okay.
We will retain a cap on the maximum size just to maintain that particular design type.
Right, so there's...
Okay, and I think that's all of the questions I have right now.
All right, Commissioner Rader?
No, the presentation was very comprehensive. I'm looking forward to trying to improve our accommodation of this particular form of housing, as well as really seeing a lot of interest, I think, in multifamily communities for micro units too. So we're hoping to develop some good language associated with that particular form of housing as another way to provide affordable housing that is appropriate to the lifestyles of people in DeKalb County.
Great. Just quick questions. I like this. I think we need to have as many tools in the toolbox as we can, but I want to make sure that we understand that even though the size is small, the price is not small. And so part of what we have to do is we want people to have this type of amenity, but how do we do it? Because you now will be able to build, instead of one cottage, you might build two, but the price is not going to change in terms of the two, because it's always going by willing seller and willing buyer. And the market is in DeKalb is that it's not a lot of land left. So people going to maximize their profits as much as they can. So I'm trying to make sure you have, so part of it is we still have to deal with that in the future, but I do like us having these options because it will give us some more sizes to consider. So now, Brandon, what do we do now? Because of, do we entertain a motion, or you just making a presentation? What are you asking the committee to do?
Nothing, sir. We were just updating you and providing you information. Okay. So what'll happen next is once we get some feedback from some of the stakeholders, we'll bring this proposal to you in an upcoming zoning cycle. And
beautiful.
The normal process.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And so I have one other question before you. Where would we be looking at these cottages being placed within the county? Is it throughout the county or what?
Yeah, so it won't be limited to any particular area. The changes that we're making will apply countywide in the residential zoning districts that we have. So it'll go through every district. It'll apply in every district in the county.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Appreciate the good work that you all are doing. And let's move on to our last item. Is that you, Mr. White?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Baker will probably jump in as well. So we just wanted to give you an update on some plans for a future update to the sign ordinance. So I'll cue that up and I'll let Mr. Baker do his thing.
And telling the commissioners that are new, this was a very long item. It looks simple with these signs, but I think it could be you in for a treat on this one. It looks very simple, but it's a monster. All right, Mr. Baker.
Yeah. Good morning, commissioners. We did. Thank you so much for funding dollars so that we can update our sign ordinance, which is chapter 21. And so what we wanted to do today was just quickly provide you guys with an update of where we are as it relates to trying to get that code updated. This will be a joint partnership between the planning department and the law department. Next slide. So what we're going to talk a little bit today about is a little history and need, some overarching goals that I would like to hit on. I'll allow Brandon to talk about the specific details as well as outline of the steps and the timeline, and we'll open it up for questions thereafter. Next slide. So the why this is important and being brought before you is because the last time the sign ordinance was updated was in 2003. So we're talking about 20 years ago, basically. And as you can imagine, all the laws and rules and development trends have changed over a 20-year period. And so we really need to update this particular ordinance. And so what we're looking to do is that create a comprehensive sign regulations that effectively balance legitimate business needs and development needs while at the same time being safe and aesthetically attractive. And this would be for not only for our residents and our workers and our business owners, but is also to project a better image to the visitors to DeKalb County now and in the future. So basically, we have these high arch overreaching goals that we want to try to accomplish with this rewrite. One is we need to make sure that we build goals that are consistent with the visions that we have for our comprehensive plan. What do we want to be in 20, 30 years from now, and how do we want to look? We want to establish signage that has some design elements to it that can also maybe contribute to creating a sense of place. Welcome to DeKalb. This is a unique environment that has a nice image that we want to project that includes the signage and our sign regulations. We want to encourage more pedestrian-oriented signage and on a scale ratio. We want to reduce the predominance of signs and while balancing the needs, again, of businesses to advertise that they exist, but also to pique the driver's interest in visiting that business establishment. We got to make sure that we make our regulations user-friendly and easy to interpret so that as development is trying to occur in the county, that they can understand our guidelines for that. We want to create some specific illustrations and graphics to show the business owners the type of signs that we're trying to encourage to change the perception in DeKalb. As you know, we have a lot of special events or temporary events and so forth. So we really need to improve our regulations as it relates to these special events that occur in the county. And then also we just want to overall try to streamline our regulations again, since they're 20 years old. Next slide, Brandon.
And so just to draw in just a little, in some greater detail, one aspect of the project will be to modernize the zoning ordinance, the sign ordinance, I'm sorry. A lot of things have changed in the legal arena over the past 20 years. There's been a few U.S. Supreme Court cases related to signage that we need to make sure that we are in compliance with. Mr. Baker mentioned technology has changed as far as digital and electronic signage. So we want to capture that and make sure that we're up to date with the latest trends there. The references to zoning districts that no longer exist, so we need to make some updates there, introduce new concepts and techniques, some of those being comprehensive sign regulations for shopping plazas and mixed-use development to create that placemaking, that sense of place, that unified signage throughout the county. We also want to simplify the process where we can. There's some language in there that has some very specific steps that we need to take that, for instance, certified mail. Well, people aren't really mailing, using the mail service for that particular purpose as much anymore. So we want to bring in some of the new technology and take advantage of that where necessary. The current code lacks illustrations. If you go through chapter 21, you will find maybe a handful of illustrations at best. So the trend with sign regulations, zoning regulations, and codes in general is to now provide more illustrations. So not only do you want to tell people what the requirements are, you want to show them exactly what you're talking about to kind of make it easier for people to get through the process, to understand it. That'll also simplify the customer experience as it relates to how we're going to measure the signage. Here's how we do it. If it's rectangular, here's how we do it. If it's triangular, so on and so forth. One of the major issues that we struggle with, billboards. So currently all existing billboards in the county are legal non-conforming signs. So we want to take a look at that. Billboards aren't inherently bad. They serve a purpose, from whether it's an on-site sign or whether it's used for providing information to the public along the interstates and whatnot. And so to the degree that there's an appetite by the community and the commissioners to accommodate that particular type of signage, we want to encourage that.
One of the things, as was mentioned by the chair early on, he said that you have a few slides, but really this is a heavy lift. Signage can be complicated. And one of the directions that we want to get from the commissioners will be how much public participation you think is necessary in terms of the public or the business communities, because that also influences the scope of work that's going to be developed. One of the things we also, Brandon, needs to roll in here under the overarching considerations is the overlay districts. As you know, the overlays have specific sign regulations and so forth as well, so we need to roll that in. Some of the questions become, it is a heavy lift, and so the cost of having an outside counsel, again, we will be having those discussions with the law department to see the best approach for that, which can affect the cost. And I think direction from the commissioners also in terms of potential amortization of the old signs. Once you have pole signs on the commercial businesses, they like to keep those pole signs there, and sometimes they get in disrepair. And so we need to also eventually start talking about whether or not this will include some kind of actions for amortization. So there are some additional considerations. We have been busy in this assessment stage of finding out and looking at scopes in other jurisdictions, looking at costs for those, and then looking at our existing ordinance to see what we have perceived to be the problems. And so during that time, we're in the assessment phase, and we will be writing a scope, a draft that we can provide to you for your consideration before we put it out on the street. And we would move then to the RFP, RFQ process, and then bring that through our whole adoption process. So Brandon, if you just show that schedule, we will be finished. Go ahead.
All right. So right now, here we are. So we are in the process of assessing the sign ordinance, trying to find the deficiencies. So that'll help the consultant when that group comes along with defining the scope of this particular project and what all the process will eventually entail. So we anticipate working on that over the next month. When we get into July, we will be preparing the preliminary project scope of work for this project. So we'll have some more figures as it relates to costs. We'll refine the timetable. We'll have a lot more detail on what this sign update should include and some next steps for you all to digest at that time. We anticipate getting to an RFP, RFQ phase in the fall. So we understand that process takes some time. So we'll work through that process with budget and finance to get that accomplished. And then going into early next year, we'll have, in the conjunction with the consultant that's chosen at the time, what that final scope of work will actually look like, what the process will look like. And hopefully we can get the process started by the spring of 2023. Beginning with the outreach, stakeholder outreach that Mr. Baker discussed, working with our community councils, planning commission, and other concerned residents, businesses, et cetera, to get feedback on our signage needs, things we need to consider, things we need to prohibit, so forth. We'll do that. And hopefully within that time period of next summer, we'll have our first rough draft prepared for you by late summer, early fall, and plans to hopefully get the ordinance through the process and adopted going into the beginning of 2024. So it is a lengthy time period. That timetable could be condensed or it could be lengthened, just depends on how some things in the steps of the process go. But we want to make sure that we absolutely include adequate time for public participation and to get feedback from the commissioners and to allow for legal review as well as we work our way through the sign update process.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I will ask the committee if you have any questions. It's going to be crucial. Commissioner Rader?
Is this revision going to help us to deal with, the issue of, content in the First Amendment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So legal will definitely be a part of that process. We've given them an update on how we would like to proceed with this, but yeah, that'll absolutely be a part of it. So where we have inconsistency with case law, we'll have to make those updates and revise the ordinance.
Okay, and this is in no way going to constrain our ability to continue to negotiate, sign conditions that are, perhaps more restrictive than the ordinance will allow. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
So we can still do our sign conditions and all that.
Place, time, and manner. So as long as we stick to that, we should stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying that it won't be like, oh no, you've got to now stay within the sign ordinance, because we do like to, sometimes limit or style signs and that sort of a thing.
And again, the law department will be walking with us throughout this process. And so any concerns that the commissioners bring to our attention, we will definitely run those concerns by law to make sure that we craft something that is defensible, but also meets the needs of DeKalb County.
Right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Any questions, Commissioner Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question. Does this impact billboards at all, or is that a totally separate situation?
Well, yeah, we're going to take a look at billboards as well during that process. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Yeah, I have no questions that haven't been asked.
All right, it's an update, and thank you, Planning Department. And that will conclude our presentations today. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Yeah, and I second that, but I would just first like to congratulate you on a successful re-election, and glad you're back. And so saying that, second the motion.
The people spoke and they did not whisper. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, it's moving properly second, all in favor? Motion carries. See you all at 2 o'clock at 5 with